So we have already seen a basic introduction to unit testing in the sense what it means for Flutter. Now we will be reading on how we can write a basic unit test for Flutter and what it tests, what it means. So as we keep on adding more and more features or in the form of units to our uh, like our existing Flutter app, we want to make sure the existing units are working as expected. So they do their job as they were doing earlier. So how do we make sure that the existing units aren't affected or they are working as a unit as they were expected to work? So that we can do by writing tests. So unit tests are very handy for verifying behavior of a single function, method, or class. And now we are talking about the dependencies. So we have a package called test, which provides the core framework for writing unit tests, and Flutter test, which provides some additional functions. Okay. So these are required for testing more widgets. So we have a quick recipe which demonstrates like how we can write a basic unit test. So first of all, we have to add the test or Flutter test dependency. So let's say we are writing a very basic test with a core framework. So we just add the test dependency as we are doing in the step 1. It is something like this. Okay. Then we create a test file. So we have our test file and we have our class to test. So we create two files. Okay. So, and then we write a test for our class, which we are want to test. And then we can, if we want, this is an optional, like combine multiple tests in a group. Like if we want to write multiple tests in the same group, and then finally we run the test. So let me just walk through all of these. So first we add the dependency. This is something like this. And then we create a test file. So we have our actual file which we want to test, which is counter.dart. And then we have our test file, which is counter_test.dart. Okay. So our actual file remains in the lib folder and the test file remains in the test folder. This is just a rearranging of the folder, like packaging them so that they look good. So this is a good practice. Then we create a class to test. So this is a basic counter class which maintains a value which is initialized to 0. And then we have our increment and decrement, two methods. Okay. Increment will basically increase the value plus plus, and decrement will basically decrement the value minus minus. So these methods are two units which we want to test, so that if we tomorrow we want to add more units, maybe multiply or like print or other units, then we want to just make sure that increment and decrement are working as originally expected. They are not affected by adding more units. So these are like increment is working perfectly as a unit, decrement is working perfectly as a unit. So right, we add a test for that. That is in the counter test.dart file. Okay. So what we do is we basically initialize our counter class in the main. So this is the counter class. Okay. And then we call the increment method on the instance of counter. And then we will be expecting that the counter value is 1, because initially it is 0, and then once it's incremented by 1 time it becomes equal to 1. So this expect function will basically check this if it is equal to 1. So if this is actually the value of this counter dot value, this instance value parameter is equal to the second argument of this expect function, then this will pass. Otherwise, this test will be like failed. So we will get a notification that this test is failed. So we need to fix this test somehow, or we need to like basically check the increments functionality, because something has, like, as time passed, some code has been added which is basically like making our increment not work properly. So we need to check our increment method for that. So yeah, so this test is the source of truth. Basically test we need not change. We will, something has been wrong with the increment. We should not try to tweak the tests according to our like functionality. Rather, our functionality should be tested using the test, and if something is wrong here, then we should be checking our, that okay, is my functionality being affected by my new changes, or some by mistake some wrong code has been checked in. I have to check that. Then we have to combine multiple tests in a group. So in this one I've just wrote one test in the main function, but ideally we should be having like multiple tests to actually cover all the various units and all the various aspects of a particular unit as well. So in that case, we basically create a group. We call it counter, and as our name of the earlier test was test, name was counter value should be incremented. So this group name is counter, and then we have various sub parts of it which are tests, basically individual tests. So value should start at 0, so that is counters value should start at 0. Then again counter value should be incremented, counter value should be decremented. So like when we initialize, we expect the value to be 0. That is what is written here. When we initialize and then we increment, then we expect our value to be 1. So that is being tested here. And when we initialize and then we decrement, then we expect our value to be -1. That is being tested here as a unit. So we are testing our increment method here, we are testing our decrement method here, we are testing our initial value constraint here. So this is the exhaustive list of tests which we can think of, the basic ones. So finally we just run the test. In IntelliJ we can just select the run menu and run tests in counter test or dart option, or we can have our keyboard shortcut configured, that also we can use. VS Code also, or in Eclipse other editors also we can try to do same, but yeah, I'm mainly using IntelliJ, so I just use this one, the step 1 to 3. And we can also run in a terminal. If you are working on a terminal based system, then you can just run Flutter test, then the test name, file name basically. And if you want to know more features from the terminal command options, then you can just write flutter test --help. Hope you liked the video about this basic test. Please leave any doubts in the comment section. Thank you, friends.